Welcome to ESPN, where we have 6 fucking analysts on the screen at one time, and best of all, they all talk over one another. You can't hear a single word that they're saying. Guys, I would love to know, what do you think about the upcoming NBA trade dedeadline? There's a lot of different ways. I haven't watched a single fucking game. I just say what it is, but I don't. What is LeBron James going to do? And then everybody just ramble. This is ridiculous. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for my annual trade deadline prediction video. The goal, the ultimate goal with this video, can I just get one right? Can I just get one trade correct? Last year, I got fucking 0. And this year, I'm thinking I'm getting 0. I've been holding on to some of these trades for quite a while now, and the more I look at them, the more I absolutely hate them. So we just need to get it done. We just need to do it, okay? I have 15 trades in this video. I cut that down from like 20. I mean, there were some dumbass trades that I had in there that you guys just don't even want to hear about, like stupid cost-saving trades here and there, trading the draft rights of certain players. Like, no one really wants to see it. 15 trades is around the average, the days before the deadline and the deadline, so that's just what I'm going with. I spent way too much time researching this. I spent way too much time doing this. Will it be worth it? There's no chance it will be. There's next to 0 chance it'll be worth it. Let's just get into it, man. I started this by breaking each team down into 3 groups, okay? And I think it's important for you guys to understand my thinking, my thought process here, and where I put these teams. Group number 1 is the retooling group. I don't think there's necessarily sellers this year in the sense that, hey, we're just trading everyone and we don't give a shit who comes back. I think most of these teams could be in the market for improving their roster if some crazy trade presented itself. And I do have one later that I'll discuss when the time comes. Obviously, I don't need to say much about these teams. The Hawks are a complete and total tire fire. They need to completely and totally blow it up. And spoiler alert, the next tier is the wild card tier. This is my favorite tier right here. We have a nice little mixture of teams that are good, teams that are bad, teams that are trending upwards, teams that are trending downwards. I could see these teams going really in any direction imaginable. The Chicago Bulls, do they trade anybody? Hey, maybe they try to get better. Maybe they finally sell. Maybe they do absolutely fucking nothing. We have no idea. The Lakers, you would like to think a team with LeBron James is a buyer, and historically LeBron James teams have bought heavily at the trade deadline, but I don't know, man. They keep losing games. How surprised would you be if LeBron James is traded in the next week? Like, if you had to put a percentage on it, how surprised would you be? Same thing goes for, like, the Warriors and the Heat. These are teams that are trending in weird directions, and I don't know. I could see a lot of different things happening with the teams in this group right here. And then, of course, you have the buyers. I mean, do I really need to explain this group of teams? The Pacers are in here. They've already bought. They're committed to buying. I don't really buy into them just, like, selling Buddy Hield or Obi Toppin. The only way they would trade those guys would be for a significant upgrade, I would think. I had the Thunder in the wild card tier originally, but then I thought about it. No, they're buyers. They're not going to be selling away. Like teams in the wild card tier, I think there's a chance that they could sell players in a shocking turn of events. The Thunder are not doing that. I'm hoping you guys get the gist of it. I tried to get every team involved just to have some fun. You know, usually there's a handful of teams that don't do anything at the trade deadline, but there are 5 teams that I couldn't find a trade partner for. The Nuggets, I think that they're fine with their roster. They'll probably just be in the buyout market, if anything. The Pacers, I think they'll do something. It sounds like they want to do something, but they already made the big Pascal Siakam trade. If they stood pat, that wouldn't surprise me at all. The Grizzlies, highly doubt they do anything. I mean, maybe they trade Xavier Tillman or Luke Kennard, but I highly doubt they do anything significant. The Pelicans already did a cost-saving move earlier in the season, and I just kind of think that's where they're at. However, how surprised would you be if Brandon Ingram gets traded? Like, that's where I'm thinking the Pelicans. Like, if Brandon Ingram gets traded between now and the trade deadline, what's that on the surprise scale for you? It's not a 10 for me. And then the Jazz, who I'm pretty confident will do something at the trade deadline. I just could not for the life of me figure out what the fuck it was. Before you ask, they're not trading Larry Markkinen. I hate seeing that. When I was doing research for this video, I kept like looking at other teams' subreddits and seeing like what the fans were thinking. And every single NBA subreddit there was said, hey, do you think we could get Larry Markkinen? No, you can't. Okay, you can't. Your dog shit trade package is not getting Markkinen. So stop asking. All right, let's get into the trades, going from what I think are the smaller moves to the big kahunas, the big moves. Starting with the Boston Celtics getting Saddiq Bey from the Atlanta Hawks for a couple seconds. Stop. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Is this guy fucking serious? Saddiq Bey for a couple of seconds? What is this video? Be patient. Have faith in me. We're going to get there, okay? Don't click off yet. The Celtics have a trade exception that Saddiq Bey fits perfectly in. They need a bigger wing to come off the bench, somebody who could be like the 8th, 9th, 10th man on the roster. Saddiq Bey fits that He hasn't had a good season at all. He's been pretty bad. He's shooting like 20-something% on corner threes, which isn't that great if you're going to go play for the Boston Celtics because they shoot a lot of corner threes. I don't know. This feels like a very cheap player that can fit into a trade exception for the Celtics, who has had some flashes here and there throughout his career, obviously. For the Hawks, I highly doubt they're going to pay Saddiq Bey in the offseason. I doubt they want to give real-life currency to him. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that these guys are making real money playing basketball? That shocked me. And spoiler alert, the Hawks are just in complete and total fire sale mode here in this video. Next, I have the Bucks shoring up their perimeter defense a little bit, getting Dennis Smith Jr. for AJ Green for contract purposes and a second-round pick. I don't know if Dennis Smith Jr.'s value will be maybe a little bit more than this. I don't know if the Nets could get more. But this makes total sense to me from the Bucks' perspective. You get somebody who could play guard for you off the bench. Campaign's minutes make you want to projectile vomit all over the place. Not saying he's a bad player necessarily, but there are times where it is really bad. And you get Dennis Smith Jr., who's a very capable backup guard and also a very, very solid perimeter defender that can help you out when you desperately need defense. And again, if you're the Nets, you brought in Dennis Smith Jr. on a minimum contract in the offseason. You're getting a second-round pick at the trade deadline for him. That's good value, right? That's good. That's a good job by the front office right there. Rare thing to say about the Brooklyn Nets. We're talking about the Nets. Let's get this trade out of the way. The Cavaliers get Royce O'Neal for Isaac Okoro. Now, if you're a Cavs fan, you're probably looking at this and saying, whoa, what the hell is that trade? We don't want that. The Cavs are reportedly interested in Royce O'Neal. Isaac Okoro has had flashes throughout his career, but he still is an inconsistent player. And Royce O'Neal, I think the highs of Isaac Okoro is better than Royce O'Neal, but you're getting a consistent veteran who you feel like you can rely on in playoff settings, which is becoming more and more important for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But there's also another piece to this that you have to consider. Royce O'Neal and Donovan Mitchell are like legitimately best buds. And I do think the Cavs are reaching a point where you got to make sure that your guy Donovan Mitchell is happy if you want him to stay in Cleveland long term. Maybe this trade helps out with that. There's also a world where you could replace Isaac Okoro with Dean Wade in maybe a couple seconds, and I think that could get it done potentially. But Royce O'Neal in Cleveland feels like a really good fit. He also gives them some legitimate playmaking ability off the bench or from a forward position, whatever the case may be. And for the Nets, I don't know, you're taking a stab at a younger player for Royce O'Neal. Like, I guess we'll take that. They did trade a first for Royce O'Neal. I forget that. The Nets did give up a first-round pick for Royce O'Neal back at whenever that was, last summer. Another small but realistic move I could see happening is the Philadelphia 76ers getting Doug McDermott from the San Antonio Spurs for KJ Martin, Robert Covington, and a couple of seconds. Doug McBucket still stretching the floor to this day, still making it rain from deep, a movement shooter that you could do a bunch of different things with. The Sixers need some shooting in their lineup. Doug McDermott gives them that at, I think, a pretty affordable price. Like, they don't have to break the bank for anything for him or anything like that. I do have them making another move later in this video, so this just kind of helps shore some stuff up for them. KJ Martin's an interesting young player, but I don't really think he has much of a future with the 76ers. The Spurs could take a stab at him and see what they got. Robert Covington dealing with an injury right now and just kind of in and out the rotation when he was healthy, and a couple seconds to get, again, a legitimate floor spacer, like somebody who defenses have to account for whenever he's on the court, help things out for Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, and a guy that you don't have to give big minutes to, but he could definitely help you out when it comes to shooting the basketball. The game's about a bucket at the end of the day. If the Sixers want to be serious, they need some floor spacing. They need some guys who could legitimately shoot the basketball. All right, let's get into it. I think the Thunder make a move here. I don't think they're going to break the bank. I don't think they're going to do anything too crazy. But I think they need some forward help. They need somebody who can plug in for fucking Josh Giddey when Josh Giddey's out there doing legal Josh Giddey things. I'm talking about on the basketball court. They are horrible, horrible things to witness. I'm not talking about the things off the basketball court. Some stability and a veteran who's been there from time to time. How about trading for Gordon Hayward? Now, Gordon Hayward's a buyout candidate, but in this scenario, the Thunder just go out and get him so they don't have to worry about competing in the buyout market, which I would assume would be very competitive for a guy like Gordon Hayward. Davis Bertans, Poku, Trey Mann in a couple of seconds gets it done, I would have to imagine. And again, you get a forward who you feel like legitimately comfortable can fit in and play playoff minutes for you, and somebody who's, again, an adult, someone who's been there, somebody who's been in playoff battles. Even though I'm thinking about it right now, how many playoff games has Gordon Hayward played in his career? Because in my mind, I'm thinking about, well, he was on the Celtics, but how often, like, how many games did he actually play in the postseason? Okay, only 29 playoff games. That actually shocks me a little bit. I thought it would be more than that for Gordon Hayward, but my point still stands. He's somebody who's been there. That's more games than most of the guys on the Thunder roster have had, and he fits in pretty well with what they got going on. I know he's hurt right now. He's always injured, but when he's healthy, he's still really, really solid. A smart basketball player, can pass, can move the ball around. he fits in pretty well there, and you're not really giving up shit. There was once a time when Poku was cool, and Pokushevsky, I got gaslit by Thunder fans because I was like, wait, explain to me why this guy's not the worst player in the sport. And they'd be like, no, dude, chill out, man. He's 7 feet tall, and he look at how he moves. And I'm like, yeah, it's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. And now it's time to move on. And that new person is Josh Giddey that they do that for. They gaslight you into thinking Josh Giddey's not. Next trade up, I love this trade. This would make me feel like a real GM concocting something like this. The Minnesota Timberwolves get a backup point guard in the form of Monte Morris from the Detroit Pistons, who just came back from an injury recently and has looked fine. I'm sure he's definitely somebody they're looking to trade. The Clippers tag into this trade to get a solid 4 who they can feel somewhat comfortable in the form of Kyle Anderson. And the Pistons take on PJ Tucker's deal, and they get some seconds for their troubles. Kyle Anderson has just not been good at all so far this season, and it's getting like really weird. His fit within the offense is so wonky because he's just completely and totally unwilling to shoot threes and incapable of doing it when he does shoot. The one thing I'll push back on, the one thing that makes me think something like this might not happen, Chris Finch, I don't know if there's a relationship that goes beyond basketball with Kyle Anderson and Chris Finch because they seem like they're in love with each other. But outside of that, I think this makes a lot of sense for the Timberwolves. I'm sure the Timberwolves would love to get a point guard who's like, under contract down the line. But I couldn't figure out a way to get them a guy like that. For the Pistons, you take on a bad contract to get 4 seconds is what I have here. That might be a little too much, but I think this makes sense for everybody involved. Let's just get this stinker out the way. I do think the Suns are going to trade for Miles Bridges. It takes a desperate team to go out and get Miles Bridges to just deal with the media circus that will inevitably follow. And just to sell your soul like that, who else would do it? Matt Ishbia? Yeah, he will do it. Go ahead and take a look. Just Google Matt Ishbia. There's a whole entire subreddit dedicated to how dog shit it is working for him. See your little bowl in a couple of seconds. I'm sure that probably gets it done. And the Suns get, on the basketball court, a pretty significant upgrade for them. But they kind of find themselves, just from a basketball standpoint, lucky that a player of this caliber is available for this cheap. We can only hope as basketball fans that the basketball gods do what they need to do to whatever team does this. And if you're the Hornets, I don't know, the chances of you bringing back Miles Bridges feels low to me. I mean, you guys need to make some significant changes to your roster. Like the laughing after the games and, we're getting beat by 30 on the sideline is kind of pathetic and embarrassing. And this would be a step to just kind of redoing the entire culture of the team. You don't really get much in return, but hey, it is what it is. And for the Suns, this is the last time they'll be able to package contracts together. So it makes sense to go out and make a move like this, even though you won't have Miles Bridges' bird rights in the summer. Daniel Gafford. Where's Daniel Gafford going to go? There's so many fan bases who are hoping I say their team right now. The Mavericks. Oh, my God. They could desperately use Daniel Gafford. What about the Thunder? They could use Daniel Gafford. I do have a Texas team getting him. The Houston Rockets. It makes a lot of sense to me. They need a backup center. Jock Landale is absolutely horrible at the sport. They just need somebody they can feel comfortable bringing off the bench for Alperen Şengün. And Gafford makes a lot of sense. They do have 2 pretty solid expiring contracts in Victor Oladipo and Aaron Holiday. Throw in a few seconds. I have 4 seconds here. Did the Wizards say yes to that? Sure. Why not? You get a really, really solid backup center. I saw a report that the Rockets are looking for starting caliber players at the deadline. Daniel Gafford definitely fits that mold. A starting caliber player who won't be starting for you, but will be coming off the bench. Some weird rumors that the Rockets were really interested in Mikal Bridges and offered multiple first-round picks for him, and the Nets said no. That could be saucy. That could be interesting. I don't think it's impossible Mikal Bridges get traded. I don't have him getting traded in this video, but that's something to keep an eye out on because the Rockets do own pretty much all of the Nets picks over the next 4 years or so because of the James Harden trade. The Nets are fucked. They are. Doing the research for this, they are fucked. Mavericks fans, trust me, the trades are coming. I do have 2 Mavericks trades that I thought a little bit outside the box for. But first, the Knicks. They have some holes that they need filled. I think they need a scorer off the bench, another shooter that they can rely on. How about a reunion? Alec Burks back to the Knicks in exchange for Evan Fournier's contract, a 2024 first, and whatever else they need to do to make this work contractually. A first might seem like a steep price to pay for somebody like Alec Burks, but the Knicks do have a lot of first-round picks to play with. And if they trade their own 2024 first, that's a pick that's going to be in the 20s in what is widely considered a not very good draft. That probably has the same value to some teams as like 3 or 4 seconds. So you can kind of look at it that way. But I like this move for them. Burks has had some moments lately for the Pistons. We know what he can do. He was really, really solid for the Knicks in the playoffs a few years ago. I thought about making a bigger trade for the Knicks like Brogdon or Tyus Jones or Jordan Clarkson, but I just couldn't figure one out. This one just made a lot of sense to me. Like, they're not really giving up that much. I know a first kind of seems like a lot, but it's really not whenever you sit down and think about it. All right, let's get into the Mavericks trades. So Wiggins just makes the most sense to me. It feels like a Dallas Mavericks move. There's a couple of different ways they can go about it. It could just be straight up Tim Hardaway Jr. and like Seth Curry. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, why the hell would the Warriors do that? The Wiggins contract is disgusting, okay? And he's had 3 good games, but front offices are smart. Right? They look at the totality and the general trend and direction of a player, and they don't just get sidetracked by 3 games in what is a pretty sizable sample at this point for Andrew Wiggins. In an ideal world for the Warriors, Andrew Wiggins figures it out and goes back to being a very, very important player for what was a championship team. I mean, Andrew Wiggins, there were some arguments that he was like the 2nd or 3rd best player on that team that won the finals just 2 years ago. But again, he's not that guy anymore. And he's got 4 years, nearly $20 million a year on his contract moving forward. And for a team that's already way over the luxury tax, that's an expensive contract. And unless he does miraculously turn it around for like a prolonged stretch, that's a contract you're going to have a very difficult time trading in the coming months and years. But they find a team that's desperate enough in the Dallas Mavericks. This feels like a Mavericks move to me. This feels like something that they would do, to be completely and totally honest with you. Go and get a distressed asset who maybe you can fix, and if you do fix them, it's going to work out great for you. There's a world where you don't have to do Tim Hardaway Jr. Like, you can do Rashawn Holmes and a couple of minimums if you're willing to go over the tax. You could do that. You could do Rashawn Holmes and Maxi Kleber together. You could do Rashawn Holmes and like Grant Williams if you really wanted to. I don't think the Mavericks would do that. In my prediction, I have them keeping Tim Hardaway Jr. Let's just have them go over the tax. The Warriors get Rashawn Holmes and Seth Curry. The Wizards are involved. I just had to find some team that would just take Markieff Morris for a second. And the Mavericks get Andrew Wiggins and a future 2nd-round pick that they can move around in another trade. Spoiler alert. As a fan, this wouldn't make me jump up and down. I'd be very scared of trading for Andrew Wiggins, but he does sort of perfect. Like, the idea of Andrew Wiggins perfectly fits what the Mavericks need. And from the Warriors side of things, this is like the Mavericks trading Kristaps Porzingis a couple years ago. You're breaking down an undesirably large contract into easier to swallow contracts that you could trade down the line. But the thing is, this trade has been mocked so many times that it's one of those things where it's not going to happen. Especially if the Mavericks do things that you don't really expect them to do. There's no fucking way this trade happens. It's been talked about to death. It's been mocked to death. This trade's not going to happen. And the next Mavericks trade, this is me just overthinking things and being in the lab and my brain being broken. I do have a broken brain, okay? This trade, I don't know, man. I don't even understand the point of it, really. But the Mavericks send Maxi Kleber to the Miami Heat and in return get Caleb Martin, Thomas Bryant, and Drew Smith gets rerouted somewhere else, wherever the fuck else, for somebody to eat that contract. Now, you're probably wondering, what in the hell is this trade? Like, what's even the point of it? The Heat, they do kind of move in a certain way. Caleb Martin has been not good so far this season. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year when he declines his player option. And I highly doubt they pay him. I highly doubt they bring him back. That's just kind of how the Heat go. So they trade him right now for Maxi Kleber, a guy who, in theory, kind of fits really well next to Bam Adebayo. Is this guy who can stretch the floor and is kind of mobile enough to play defense on the perimeter, but can block some shots when needed. And a guy who's under contract for 2 more years after this season at a pretty reasonable number. So a contract that they could use in trades in the summer if they want to go out and make upgrades somewhere else. It's not the big splash that the Heat and Heat fans kind of think that they need, but in theory, I think it is kind of an interesting fit for Miami. And if you're the Mavericks, I don't know, you're taking a stab on Caleb Martin, who was really good a year ago. Some pretty interesting like point of attack defense and stuff from him when he's healthy. Thomas Bryant, I guess, is someone who can come off the bench for you. Never really been a big Thomas Bryant fan. I just needed to include him in this. And you're getting off the Maxi Kleber number. I don't know. This feels like, from a fan's perspective, from my fan's perspective, it's like, let's get rid of sort of some of the inconsistent players that have been here for a little bit too long. That's kind of what it feels like for me, just from a fan looking at this trade. And I have no idea. Is this trade fucking stupid? Like, I have no clue. Like, who looks at me and says, this trade is fucking stupid? Why would either team do this? If that's how you feel, you're probably right. I don't know. It kind of made some sense to me. I think I made this trade at like 2:30 in the morning, and it kind of made some sense to me then. But it's like post-nut clarity. I have like post-trade clarity. When you go on Fanspo and you click it and it says success, then you look at it and you're like, what the hell did I just do? All right, I have 4 trades left. They're all pretty sizable. I think one of them is just me fucking around, and it is a league altering, but none of the other 3 are like necessarily league changing. Franchise changing though, for sure. Let's start with Malcolm Brogdon, who hilariously said that he doesn't want to get traded from the Blazers and he feels valued there. It's kind of crazy because both Jeremy Grant and Brogdon have said in the recent weeks that they don't want to get traded. That's good for Portland. That does mean that Portland's doing something good. And we've seen with the Thunder in the past that having vets who like playing for your organization, even though they know they're probably getting traded down the line, it's not a bad place to be at. Like, that's exactly where the Thunder were a few years ago. But I do think they trade Brogdon. It just makes sense for them. It opens up things for some of their younger guys. And the Sixers make a lot of sense for me. Marcus Morris, Korkmaz, a first and a couple of seconds. It just makes a ton of sense. The Sixers go out and get a guy who's under contract next season, but not at some like crazy number, so you can still make moves in the summer if you want to. And the Blazers get a future pick for their troubles. And again, they sort of open things up for some of their younger guys to get more minutes and, you know, have the ball in big moments. Like, I know it sucks. I know right now it kind of sucks, and you trust Malcolm Brogdon with the ball in his hands more than some of your young guys, but your young guys have to have the ball in their hands at some point. Like, it has to be a point of emphasis, and there has to be a development stage there. This gives the Sixers some scoring punch off the bench, and again, somebody that they can rely on, somebody they can count on, someone they know is going to be good, even though he was kind of ass in the playoffs last year, but he was dealing with an injury, so you can't really blame him too much. All right, the next trade was another 2:30 in the morning concoction here that I can't decide if I hate or love. It's a 3-team trade involving the Raptors, Kings, and Wizards. And the main pieces of this trade, the Raptors are getting Deni Avdija from the Wizards. I think this makes a lot of sense for them. Like, I think going after a guy like this who's younger and could, in theory, kind of be an OG replacement for you, even though OG is obviously much better than Deni Avdija. But Deni could do some of the things you wanted OG to do, but like a Kmart version. So it kind of makes some sense. The Kings are getting Bruce Brown, who's getting rerouted from the Raptors. I think this is, I didn't think this was going to happen for the longest because I thought, you know, the Raptors can just pick up that option in the summer, and that's like an interesting contract they can have to trade, but I haven't loved his fit with this Raptors team at all, and I think that it makes sense to trade him now. The Kings also get DeLon Wright in this deal, which I think makes some sense for them. Like, he kind of provides what Davion Mitchell does. Davion Mitchell might be a slightly better perimeter defender than him, but DeLon Wright's just bigger, and I think he just kind of fits in with your team a little bit more while also being a really, really good perimeter defender and a very underrated player. Like, I like me some DeLon Wright. DeLon Wright did spend some time in Sacramento a few years ago, so there you go. A bit of a reunion, and then the Wizards are getting Harrison Barnes, Davion Mitchell, who they can take a stab at, and a few firsts. I don't know what the pick situation will look like here, to be honest with you. I don't know. Does it make sense for the Kings to also send picks if they're sending Harrison Barnes, who I think could have some value? Davion Mitchell, who I actually have zero clue what his value across the league is. It's entirely possible that the league has zero interest in Davion Mitchell just because he's so small and has shown next to nothing offensively. The Raptors would definitely be sending a pick, I think. And I'm also not so sure the Raptors, like, I don't really know the value of Deni Avdija. Like, that's the question I have. Because for me, looking at him from afar, I think I wouldn't trade him for anything less than 2 first-round picks. Like, that's just how I view him and a player at his age and at his team-friendly contract. But I have no clue what the Wizards are thinking. That's the thing. None of us have any idea what the Wizards are thinking at any given moment. But I like Bruce Brown on the Kings. I do. I know losing Harrison Barnes would kind of suck for them. He's been good lately, but they just need some consistency. Teams and GMs don't trick themselves based off of like 2 or 3 good games. They know, well, inconsistent players are inconsistent players, and they're going to have games that look really good. That's part of being inconsistent. Bruce Brown gives him somebody who can do a bunch of different things. I think he would fit really well in their offense. Like we kind of saw in a Nuggets offense that emphasized moving around and passing that he really flourished. And this is a Kings offense that, you know, does it in different ways, but still a movement offense that passes the ball and moves the ball around. Him and Sabonis on dribble handoffs would be really interesting, I think. And he gives them some defense. I actually liked it. Talking about it now, I love this trade. I love it. It makes so much sense. I lied. I have 16 trades. I did forget that. I did have a Zach LaVine trade. I don't know. The Bulls are talking big talk right now. Like, oh, we're not trading. We think we're actually going to stand pat. I'm not fucking buying it. I do think this is the year that Zach LaVine gets moved. And I think that the Pistons rumors came up that the Pistons were interested. And everyone was like, whoa, what the hell? And admittedly, myself at first, I was like, what the hell? But I thought about it more. I can see it. Like, does Bojan, Marcus Sasser, and then whatever other contract you need, James Wiseman or whatever, does that make sense? Is that enough for Zach LaVine? I know Bulls fans would like to think that they would get picks in this process, but I don't know. You're getting Marcus Sasser, who's looked pretty promising so far this season as a rookie ball handler, and Bojan for a team that I actually think is trying to actually win games right now in the Chicago Bulls. They're not interested in a full-fledged rebuild. They're interested in still winning games. Bojan would help you out right now, stretch the floor a little bit, give you some shooting, give you some offensive creation. Bojan and DeRozan next to each other feels really strange to me now that I say it out loud. And the Pistons take a stab on Zach LaVine. You know, there's a world where it works. There's a world where it makes a ton of sense. There's a world where a year or two from now we're like, fuck, I can't believe the Pistons did that. Like, that was really smart. They bought Zach LaVine at the lowest point that they could possibly buy him, and he turned into a really, really solid piece for them, or somebody that they were able to trade for, like, legit value. You could flip him down the line and get way more than what you gave up for him. Or it could blow up in your face. And the reality is for the Pistons, what is your timeline right now? You have no idea. If it does blow up in your face, it's not like it's ruining your franchise. Can it get lower? I mean, truthfully. Can it? They've been playing better basketball lately, and LaVine, I feel like LaVine could help out some of the young guards on this team. Just somebody who could shoot the ball, somebody who could take some pressure off the offense, somebody other defenses have to account for, instead of having like 4 guys on the court at once where defenses are like, who the fuck is that guy? Yeah, we don't bother guarding him. All right, and the final 2 trades do involve the Brooklyn Nets and the Atlanta Hawks. Dejounte Murray, where the fluff is he going? The reporting surrounding this has been so strange. There is a world where he is kept, but I really doubt it. The things seem really, really bad there. There's some like weird family tweeting stuff, some weird DMs going around. It's just, that feels like a situation that is not fixable, and he should be traded in the next week. Who's going to trade for him? I mean, the Lakers have been brought up a ton, but I don't even know if that makes much sense. Then a team popped into my brain that made all the sense in the world. A team that really can't afford to be fucking horrible because they don't own any of their picks. A team that does have some pretty interesting role guys, and a team that has a clear and obvious need for a lead ball handler. And that is the Brooklyn Nets. But wait, the Lakers do get involved. They do get involved. What do you guys think of this 4-team trade? I have no idea. It made some sense to me whenever I made it, and I kind of liked it. It kind of felt fun. The Nets are getting Dejounte Murray in this trade and Gabe Vincent for contract purposes. But the Lakers are kind of coming away like bandits here, getting Dorian Finney-Smith and Brogdon. And if that seems like a highway robbery, this kind of stuff happens from time to time. Like we saw the Lakers last year. It felt like they really revamped and rehauled their roster, and they just kind of took advantage of some faltering situations and were able to really improve their team while only giving up like one first-round pick in the process. I do have them sitting out that 2029 first, and that could be a first-round pick that is very valuable. Like that could be a pick that teams around the league view as super valuable. And if you don't think this is worth it for the Lakers, they're getting 2 rock-solid role players in return here. And while Dorian Finney-Smith's not like some great offensive talent, I think like he's fine there, right? And he gives you sort of a versatile defender that matches exactly what you're trying to do with your roster. And Brogdon just gives you a solid as hell guard off the bench. Right now, I don't know. I don't know if this is enough for the Hawks or if this is too much for the Hawks. I genuinely have no clue what Dejounte Murray's market is, like what his value really is. But the Magic also get involved here and take a chance on D'Angelo Russell. As I said earlier, GMs and front offices aren't dumbasses. Like the Lakers saw what happened in the playoffs last year. Like they would be fools to get tricked by a good stretch at the end of January by D'Angelo Russell. We know who he is. He's an inconsistent player. And inconsistent players do inconsistent player things, which means having a stretch where they look like the best fucking basketball player in the world. But the Magic need some offense. They need some shooting, and especially from the guard spot. So, I don't know. To me, like them taking a shot on D'Angelo Russell and it not working out wouldn't break their franchise or anything like that. I think they're one of the few teams that are in a position to take a stab at D'Lo, and if he works out, then great. It's a good get for you. If not, then whatever. And the only thing they're really giving up in the process is Markelle Fultz, who's an expiring player who they're probably not bringing back anyways. Why not? I feel like the Lakers probably should have to give up more, in my opinion. Maybe Jalen Hood-Schifino is involved in this trade or something. I have no idea. But then I'm like, the Hawks could have drafted Jalen Hood-Schifino, and they didn't. They chose Kobe Buffkin over him, who's balling out in the G League. I have not sold my Kobe Buffkin stocks, even though I can't fucking say his name. It just makes some sense for the Nets, in my opinion. Like, you're not really giving up much in this process for Dejounte Murray, and you're getting a guy who can be the lead ball handler for you. It's hard to find a situation where Dejounte Murray is happy being like the guy with the ball in his hands a lot, and also a team that like really kind of needs that. And the Nets fit that perfectly, I think. All right, we have one final trade here. I'm not really predicting this, but as just a fan of the league, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, a fan of the drama. I want something crazy. In the past few trade deadlines, there's been something crazy, something kind of out of the blue, out of nowhere that we haven't expected. What could it be this year? Well, the Pelicans are faltering. Could Brandon Ingram be on the move? I mean, I really doubt it. Could the Warriors really trade Clay and Draymond and just end that whole dynasty unceremoniously? What if LeBron said, dude, I'm 39 years old, 21 years in the league. This is a shit show. I want out of here. Trade me to a good team. Nope. I mean, there's no way the Trae Young era ends in a good way for Atlanta, right? I mean, just this feels like a sinking ship. And I really kind of doubt Trae Young wants to be there for it. I don't know. That's just kind of the vibe I get. What if the Spurs just said, fuck it, we'll go get him right now? Like, why not? Victor Wembanyama is going to be too good for us to just kind of loiter around and wait a few years and build up our team through the lottery. They're going to get a high pick in this upcoming draft, but how many more times are you going to be able to do that? It reminds me of the Luka situation with the Mavericks. The Mavericks saw right away Luka's going to be way too fucking good for us to rebuild in the traditional way. Let's go out and get KP. Did it fail tremendously? Yes. Yeah, it fucking failed. The difference, though, between the Spurs and the Mavericks is the Spurs have a ton of picks in their arsenal to play around with. They don't have to break the bank the way the Mavericks did to go out and make a move like this. And while 5 first-round picks might sound like a lot, it's really not in the grand scheme of things because 3 of those picks are Atlanta Hawks picks. So the Spurs are basically saying, all right, Hawks, tear it down, do your rebuild. We'll give you your picks back, and then we'll give you 2 other firsts in the process. And the crazy thing is, the Spurs would still have a lot of picks to play around with after this. And they get their point guard of the future. They get somebody who they can plug next to Victor Wembanyama. I would love this. Do I think it's going to happen? Absolutely not. This is not a real life prediction. This is me trying to will something like this into the universe. And if you're Atlanta, it's just like, dude, let's just shut this shit down. This has been a fiasco the last few years, really ever since we made the Eastern Conference Finals. It has been all downhill since. Our future looks relatively bleak, all things considered. Even if we trade Dejounte Murray, we have Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. That's kind of like a promising 1-2 punch, but realistically, where are we headed? Where are we going? Anyways, man, if you guys watch this video, make sure you like it. Make sure you leave a comment. I usually don't ask for those, but I spent way too long on this video. And again, it's not going to be worth it. So you guys could at least try. At least try to make it worth it for me. Can you do that for me? This league is an awesome league. It rains. Oh, and in case you're wondering, I couldn't find a trade that made sense in my little fairy tale La La Land for Tyus Jones, nor Kyle Kuzma. So those are guys who I think probably get traded, but I just couldn't find one.